Hello, Coach Jason here, and today we're looking at how to find tactics. And as you see on the left here, there's these four categories that generate all tactics. It's going to be checks, captures, loose and semi-loose pieces, and unfortunately placed pieces. And we'll get into all of these as they arise. Let's go ahead and look at some examples that bring this about. This first one is a fork, and it is white to move, and you can win material by thinking about a couple of these different categories we have on the right here, these four. Let's go ahead and pause your video. Checks and loose pieces here. So you always want to consider all the checking moves you can play, and one of the checking moves we have actually also attacks the undefended rook. So this black rook is undefended. We check the king and we win the rook for free. It's looking pretty scary for us. Queen coming to f3 would have been checkmate. So using these four categories, you can be vigilant about looking out for tactics. There's kind of loose pieces all over the place. There's various threats. Now this kind of falls into two different categories. We have the unfortunately placed pieces and the loose pieces. So pause your video if you want to think about it, but we can actually attack this undefended knight here and get ourselves in line with the king and the rook. So the whole reason that I did that is I wanted to move to c6, forking the rook and king with check, but at least here I get a free knight for a pawn. So a tactical advantage because of the combination of a unfortunately placed piece setup and also the loose pieces. So usually it requires two of these categories, these four categories, to occur for a tactic to arise. So here we have a semi-loose, or excuse me, a fully loose piece. It's undefended. We'll get into semi-loose in a moment. And yeah, we pause your video if you want to solve it, but yeah, the bishop could just come here. Check and win the rook. Okay. So in this example, we have both the fourth category as well as really this first and second categories combined to create this outstanding tactic. Pause your videos if you like. But okay, there's almost like this royal fork here. Knight to f7. We'd like to play knight to f7 because that's this pattern of a fork between the king and the queen. But of course, the knight prevents us from doing that. Well, what would happen if we capture it? We should always consider that as an option. How does that change the game? And in this case, it's fantastic. We take that knight with check. We really have got no choice but to capture back. And then we get to play this just wonderful, powerful, devastating fork, the royal fork. So in this position, this is more of a captures scenario. So you have to think about, well, it's also loose and semi-loose pieces as well. So we haven't really talked about, but a loose piece is something that is guarded and protected the same number of times. So if we look here, are guarded and attacked the same number of times. So here, both the knight on b3 and the bishop on d3 are attacked. Our rook is attacking the bishop and our bishop is attacking the knight, and both of them are defended once. The thing is, they're being defended by the same thing, and normally you can't do that, defend the same two different things with the same piece. This pawn is overworked. So we can actually capture, essentially becomes a free piece. They don't even capture back in this case, because if they did, they'd be going down a bishop, another piece. When you're down, you don't want to trade. So we'll probably just find another spot for our bishop. So in this scenario, we want to look at our loose and semi-loose pieces. We want to look at the different captures. So let's look at the semi-loose pieces. Maybe we can define that a little more clearly. A semi-loose piece is a piece that is guarded and attacked the same number of times. So like number of times, like this bishop is guarded by the knight and is attacked by the queen. This knight over here, is that semi-loose? It's guarded by the rook and the pawn. It's attacked by the bishop and the queen, so technically that's a semi-loose piece. Is there anything else? The knight is not semi-loose because it is guarded by the pawn and the queen. It's only attacked once. But then there's relationships between these pieces, so we always need to consider what would happen if we capture a piece. How does that change the aspect of the game? If you want to solve this puzzle, go ahead and pause. But the knight is defending the bishop, so the bishop is semi-loose, guarded and attacked the same number of times, but we can take the defender here, attacking the queen. When they capture back, we end up with a free piece. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video if you want to solve this. But so we've got to consider every possible check. Got to consider the captures. You know, you could capture the queen, you could capture the knight. If you capture the knight, it's check, and there's a relationship between the knight and the queen, and that is that the knight is defending the queen. So if you take the knight, you get the queen for your investment of 3 points, or well, for your 3-point knight, you sacrificed your 5-point rook, but then you got a 9-point queen on top of that. Alright, let's look at our powerful final tactic for today. So go ahead and pause your video if you'd like to solve that on your own. We've always got to consider every check. You need to get in the habit of considering every checking move. In this case, we check the king, but we end up attacking the queen at the same time. So a brutal move. He's going to have to block with his queen. And we get to trade our 3-point bishop for a 9-point queen. This concludes our video on how to find tactics using these 4 concepts to put on your list for thinking about every move. Checks, captures, considering loose and semi-loose pieces, and then unfortunately placed pieces, just pieces that are placed in a pattern, lined up or set up in forks. Thank you very much for watching, and have an excellent day.